What's going on, everybody? Aaron Trevino here, back on our Texas real estate and construction channel, back down here in the beautiful city of Houston. And for the second time and the first time in person, we have Herman Torres with GL&L Holdings. How you doing, Herman?
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Doing well. We got a real positive reception from the first video we did. A lot of people, down here in Texas, we're in that housing shortage. A lot of people are interested in using hard money and private money. So I know it's going to be a great show today, and happy to sit down with you.
Thank you. Appreciate you basically having me. I'm glad to be here.
Definitely, Herman. So I know we talked about it the first time, but could you explain a bit about more about what you do and what your business is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've been in the business now since 2010. GL&L Holdings has really grown year over year. We've been proud of that growth, and we basically do private money. It's also called, asset-based, hard money. At the end of the day, we lend funds to investors, people that want to, maybe do a rehab and sell the property, or they want to do a rehab and flip it into a rental portfolio. They want to do a cash out. We do land, which a lot of people don't do. Obviously not at the same loan to value. We can talk about that if we need to in a future type podcast. But we do a little bit of everything. We do also, joint ventures with people that have some deals. They don't have as much experience, and they want somebody that has kind of gone through the whole gamut, right? Good, bad, and ugly, because we made mistakes just like anybody does. So we learn from those mistakes, and we have some pretty decent protocols already in place to prevent those mistakes from happening. We do, basically foreign national loans as well to people in Latin America, Canada, outside in Europe. We just did a loan a couple of months ago to a lady from Brazil. Those people have some funds, but they can't get loans quickly because they don't have a Social Security or, a lot of the criteria that banks usually require, and we can help them with that.
Absolutely. And, the construction space in Texas is so interesting because you can have anybody who's, just looking to do their first deal to someone who's a veteran who's done many different construction deals. So I think what's really appealing, is kind of that joint venture, right? That JV, so maybe you have someone who has a deal, but they don't have cash, or they have a lot of cash and they don't have a deal. I know you explained a bit about it before, but could you talk to us about what a JV is for, a construction loan?
Yeah, absolutely. So a joint venture is exactly that, right? It's a venture that is joined by 2 or 3 or 4 different people. At the end of the day, it would be us with whoever brings the deal. Maybe they don't have the sufficient cash to start the project. And if it makes sense where, both parties are going to make some money, we can establish a joint venture or a general partnership where we can look at the project and we all identify each other's roles, ROIs, rate of return, based on whatever funds we bring versus whatever they bring, the experience that they have versus what we have, and what we bring to the table, what they bring to the table. So it's pretty much a partnership that is written and basically recorded, and all the different criteria and all the different responsibilities identified.
Absolutely. And could you also speak to, I know that you're down here in Houston. Houston is obviously a very large city, and I know that you guys take a lot of pride in being local. Could you talk a bit more about the importance of working with someone who's local to that market?
Well, that's a great question, and really that's something that everybody really needs to be concerned with. Is when you go outside of, your area of expertise, it's something to be concerned about, and if you don't partner up with somebody that kind of knows the market, the ups and downs of that market, the neighborhoods, just the whole gamut of potential concerns and issues that can result from not knowing the area, the contractors, the surveyors, the appraisers, the title companies, just a lot of things. So, having said all that, we do most of our deals in the Houston and surrounding areas, but we also have loaned to experienced people that know what they're doing in Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth. We got a deal in Bernie outside of San Antonio, Corpus Christi. So we don't go out of Texas, and we may not go like to Amarillo and some of, maybe down to the Valley, even though again we've done, Corpus Christi, but I don't consider that the Valley, right? So anyway, at the end of the day, it's important to kind of partner up and definitely know the area that you're going to be concentrating on, or at least doing that project in.
Absolutely. And real estate is just it's such a vast industry, right? Because maybe you see a beautiful development, you see a new beautiful home, and it gets sold, and you see the final product, but a lot of times you don't think about, hey, where did that money come from? Who came up with the idea? So that's why it's so important to be able to connect with people on the financial side, like yourself.
Yeah, I mean, they say, and you just mentioned it earlier, that, if you have a deal, but you don't have the funds, you're not going to get anywhere.
Mm,
If you have the funds, but you don't have the deal,
mm,
then you also, have stale money, not making any type of growth, any
mm,
type of return on that money. So it is important, and there's so many things, like you said, when you see that end product, you don't know what went on,
mm,
you know, from the very beginning, all the obstacles, all the challenges. If you don't select the right builder, or the builder
mm,
works out on you because you got a great offer and a great bid, but that bid was nowhere near what it should have been.
mm.
So, too many things can go wrong, and that's where you need somebody that at least has made those mistakes and can prevent them, from happening in the future.
Absolutely. And I know, probably the big elephant in the room here is, a lot of people are very concerned. Right now, we're in the beginning of November of 2022. We don't know what the future has in store for us. The big elephant in the room right now is interest rates. Could you speak a bit about how interest rates are impacting your business, and what do you think that the next 12 months will have in store for us?
Yeah, it is something that we have to deal with, and it is something that's happening very rapidly, which is concerning. But at the end of the day, we had our best month last month. In really, I think if we go back in the history of the company in terms of loans closed, and from an investor standpoint, if you do the numbers correctly, and if you basically have everything identified to a very detailed area, right? Or you basically work out all the things, all the contingencies. So basically, if your numbers work out at the beginning, they should work out at the end, regardless of the interest, because the interest is part of that equation. So it's not just buying the land, the construction cost. You include the interest, insurance, property taxes, HOAs, and a whole other slew of things. So that's just one part of the equation. It's not the only one, even though for a lot of people, it creates a lot of concerns because obviously it's going to increase the cost basis of that project.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we cannot let just the interest rates alone, prevent you from going into a deal. Because you can, the good old saying, right, paralysis by analysis. You can't let that happen. You have to keep that money working. You have to do your due diligence and just plug in the numbers correctly. And that's where, again, working with somebody that is experienced and that can plug in the numbers and that can show you certain things that maybe you haven't considered. And if the numbers work out, you have to, jump into the pool and start swimming.
Yeah, and that's some great insight there. I guess working with the construction lender like yourself, it's not just you and the boat alone, right? You're having someone who's also there as well, and wanting you to succeed, because when you succeed, they love repeat business, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we want our clients to succeed, because if they succeed, that means that we helped them in one way, whether it was just as a lender, we provided them funds, we provided them guidance, because there's a draw schedule that must be followed. And so we give them some structure, if you will. And if everything is successful, hopefully they can continue to use us for those loans, and that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. And that's some great insight, really, on regardless of, the shift in the economy, us still needing, that housing, right? Obviously, we're in that housing shortage, and really just, like you mentioned, taking into account those contingencies. Another big concern people have is the value of the US dollar. Could you speak about maybe how that's affecting, the construction loan business at all? Are you seeing that?
No, I personally have not. I know the U.S. dollar, oddly enough, is actually getting stronger versus, for example, the Latin America country, whether south or even in Mexico. And so a lot of people are bringing in funds into the U.S. to do investments, to do purchases of rental properties, maybe second homes, to prevent some of the devaluation from hurting their economy. As far as we're concerned, what's affecting us more than anything else is the cost of materials, right? There's still, it's fluctuating, it's not leveled out. It seems like every month it goes either down or up. And so the projection of that needs to be taken into consideration. But I'm not seeing that the the valuation is hurting any business here. That's my personal kind of take on that.
Mm. Absolutely. And, I figured I would just ask that, just considering, there's so many different moving pieces in construction. You have, like you mentioned, the lumber costs, you have interest rates, you have the housing shortage in the US dollar. There's really so many different, I guess maybe to someone who's looking to do a construction deal, there's a lot of reasons why you should not do a construction deal. Why is right now, going into 2023, why is it a special time or a good time to consider, jumping into a construction deal?
Well, and let me clarify one thing. For us, a new construction versus a rehab is kind of two different things. I mean, both of them require construction, right? A rehab requires remodeling, cabinetry, sheetrock, paint, and so on and so forth. But again, if we go back to doing your analysis, I think the house shortage is still there. The problem now is because the interest rates are indeed going up, some people will not be able to afford the house that they could afford last year. And that's pretty basic, I mean, obviously. But if you, as a new construction company or investor, whether it's a rehab or new construction, if you're staying within, that average medium pricing, and if you're controlling your costs as much as you can, you're doing your due diligence, there's no reason why not to get into, because the shortage is still there. People are moving in, into Houston. I heard some ridiculous number of almost 1,000 per day. And not just tourists, I'm talking about people moving in. No state taxes, right? The cost of living is still a lot better than a whole bunch of other places in the U.S. So as long as you're doing your due diligence and you're partnering up with the right builder, with the right contractors and people that can get you the supplies in a fairly decent timeline, you should be okay.
Absolutely. And I know one thing that we briefly touched on was, kind of a lot of, business people from Latin America coming here. I know that you're personally from Colombia, so you have people from Colombia or Mexico, different parts of Latin America, coming here to do business here in Texas. Could you maybe explain maybe a few, I guess, differences between qualifying for a conventional loan versus a hard money loan here in Texas for a foreign national?
Yeah, so the foreign nationals, that come here with the intention of investments, they typically have, the net worth. They typically have the cash. But the banks over here, they require, the same criteria in most cases for a U.S. citizen versus a foreign national, regardless of the fact that you have the cash. So, we can help them by minimizing all the necessary criteria, right? They may not have a social security number. We would be okay without that. Some of them have the IT number. Again, whether they do or they don't, that's not something that we're going to be collecting. We're worried about helping them invest in the property, get into the property, and make sure that that property is one that will evaluate so they can in turn get their return on their investment, because that's really what they're looking for, is to prevent the valuation of their currency, come in and invest in properties that will make sense. And in this particular case, not only can we find them the property, we can basically also rent them, find the tenant, we can do the property management for them. And so we can do a turnkey operation where if the numbers work out, they feel comfortable in jumping in.
Absolutely. And that kind of goes back to working with someone who knows that local market, right? Because you've, like you said, I didn't know it was around 1,000 people, but just, a lot of people coming in here to the state of Texas with the intention of investing and doing construction.
Yeah, people actually, the people that I'm talking about coming in, they're moving into Texas. They're moving in, they're making it a homestead, right? That's not to mention everybody else that's coming as a tourist or just as an investor. So it's a lot more people than 1,000, but I'm talking about people that are moving in to look for either apartments that they can move in or houses they can move into, and become tenants, or, owners of property. So that's why you see all these apartments going up, houses and neighborhoods are still going up. The builders are having to now kind of have to worry about the cost, because they cannot go and build, houses that are going to be way past that medium range. because again, these interest rates are going to indeed hurt some of the families that could afford a $500,000 house. All of a sudden, they can't move into a $500,000 house because the mortgage note is going to be too high. Maybe they need to settle on a $350,000 house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of concerns. I know we talked a bit about, kind of the cost of living, people coming in, lumber prices, the U.S. dollar, whatever it may be. So it's a very unique time that we're living in. It kind of seems like there's something special in store for us in the new market in the new year of 2023. So we'll see what it is.
Well, New Year always brings new resolutions and new ideas, and hopefully the things that will change. I mean, we're coming off of, something that I think none of us will live again or go through again, and that's the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. So if we survive that, we can't be too pessimistic. That's not what we do here. We're optimistic with touches of realism, right? We have to be realistic, but we also have to be bullish on making sure that the monies that we have, that we put to work correctly, and the monies that we manage, that we put to work correctly.
Absolutely, and that's definitely a big takeaway from the show today. Herman, is there anything you haven't said that you'd really just like to hit home for us today?
No, I think everybody should really do, kind of as we end the year, look at what they've done that has worked this year, put some goals. We've heard this before. A lot of us tend to try to write the goals down, but we have to write those goals down and shoot for 2023 to be the best year that we all can experience. Here at GL&L Holdings, we're here in case you need any funds. Again, we do partnerships, we do cash outs, we do land deals, and so we're family owned. We're small enough where we don't have a whole bunch of bylaws and a whole bunch of different scales to go through in authorization, right? We make loans happen, most cases within a 15-day period. So we're here to get the loans done. We're here to help the builders and the rehabbers make sure that they have funds not only to close the deal, but to move the project along in a timely manner.
Yeah, and that's such a special distinction you made there, not just closing the loan, but also, seeing it to fruition and really seeing it all the way through so, someone can accomplish their goal and then, of course, do their next deal.
Yeah, I mean, you can get stuck if you have a project and you have a lender that doesn't, give you the funds in that timely manner based on the draw schedule that has been identified and approved. And so obviously there's certain protocols, and we can be nimble and make sure that there are some flexibility steps that we need to take sometimes. Not everything is perfect, and we know that because we've done projects ourselves, and there's a difference between theory and application, right? We've experienced the good and the bad, and so we've learned from it, and we're here to help whoever needs it. So
sure, and that's what's needed as well about y'all's services is really, you're able to kind of speak that construction language because you've been there before, right? That you talked about theory versus action, so I think that's real great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate you, taking the time and having me on your show. Whoever needs to get in touch with us, we're here at GL&L Holdings on the Energy Corridor side of Houston. The phone number is 832-770-9415. Looking forward to talking to you and helping you out, or maybe partnering up on your next deal.
Absolutely, and that's a great way to end the show today, Herman. It's been great learning a bit more about your services, going into a bit more depth. We talked about JV ventures, getting into deals, and not only getting into them, but also seeing them all the way through. And it's been a real great show. We'll have his contact info in the show notes, y'all. And we're signing off from beautiful Houston, Texas. We'll see y'all next time.